Let me go share this goodie. All right. Can I be heard? Let me see, is my audio on? My audio's on and we're good. All right. Hello and welcome, beautiful people. I'm actually trying to work around using my phone because my laptop camera is not amazing. But I think we got it and we are live. If you are here, go ahead and drop me a hi because I can't see everything, but I can see some things. I'm not going to waste your time, but so for our circle collectives, we have been doing anything that people in our community, our circle community, are passionate about or really enjoy. And so we've had design, we've had music, we had reading books, and it has actually been a really wonderful experience. I get to do one today about a topic that I'm actually very interested in, and it's relevant. And it's not that it's relevant that I'm doing it, it's more so that, again, this is just one of the passions I've had. So if you've seen the flyer, you've seen it. If you haven't, you haven't. But it's why race doesn't matter. um the nt is crossed out, but that is for purposes of like double entendre, if you will. So let's get it. Let me see if I can get this screen up for you guys as well. I'm struggling. Bear with me, please. I got too many windows open on this one computer. Okay. Did we do it? We got it. All right. Um, why race doesn't matter. So we're gonna start off with a real quick participatory activity. It's you let me know how you feel. This is one title slide, um, and it may give you a feeling. You may have thoughts about it versus this title slide. Look at them. How do you feel? Whatever you think about it. Look at it. How do you feel? Whatever you think about it. This is another title slide. Look at it. How do you feel about it? All right. This is just getting you accustomed to what's about to happen. Now, there's a colored background. Please tell me, drop it in the chat. Is this a boy or girl color? Is this a boy or girl color? Okay. Next, is this a boy or a girl color? Is this a boy or a girl color? Lastly, is this a boy or a girl color? Is this a boy or a girl color? All right, this is an amazing picture. No leading questions, but as you can see, it is a child. This is actually a grandfather on the left picture and then a child by themselves on the right picture. And so the question is this a boy or a girl? Is this a boy or a girl? Y'all don't want to out yourselves. It's okay because You may see that I'm leading y'all down the path right now. So what you are actually looking at in this previous picture here is the same child who is a boy, and not just any infant child, but this is the great Mr. New Deal himself. This is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. And so you may think like, Daph, like, why are you showing me a picture with FDR in a dress/skirt? It's because, well, this was actually commonplace for a long time. These are actually pictures of other boy children in dresses, and a practice called briefing. This is a boy in a sailor dress, if you will, and a practice called breeching. And the idea of breeching is the child, like the dress is the most comfortable thing to wear, and the child actually doesn't need to be wearing like pants and restricting themselves until they're older. So between like 2 and 5 years old. So it's actually very common. But for us, we may see, a child wearing a dress, and don't make it a pink dress, and then we automatically think it's a girl. So interesting thing about the colors as well. So um, it's actually a more recent development that we have colors so genderized. Before, the pink was actually a male color as well, because pink was seen to be a tone of red, which was supposed to be a strong color. So to wear pink was to be wearing an homage to this strong red. And it was only later in the 1950s that we see this whole transfer of, well, this is a girl color and this is a boy color, so let's get this thing right to make sure that we can identify what gender this is. So Daph, why are you challenging us on this concept? Before we answer this next question, is because I want to talk about social constructs. Social constructs are, if I could put the lamest term possible for you guys, it's this. It is playground rules that we all abide to. If you don't know what a playground rule is, it's because you probably you may not have been born in the States and then grow up playing in the playground. But playground rules are those unwritten rules that you just follow because like it's the right thing to do. So for example, if we're going to go play tag, you have a couple ways to initiate tag. The person like gets giddy and initiates tag. Once you're tagged, playground rule says you have one of two choices: accept the tag, and you begin to chase a person. Or when I was growing up, you also did eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And however eeny, meeny, miny, mo goes down, you have to abide by it. And so why social constructs are important is because they not only do they create meaning for us, for example, as this is a boy color, this is a girl color, this is boy clothing or girl clothing, but they actually help us navigate and understand our human interactions within our society. And fortunately, and sometimes unfortunately, they create positive and negative interactions to things that we have to abide by, but don't even really know why we're doing it. And so I'm going to give you a few more examples of some social constructs that affect us today that we actually didn't have any by part in choosing, but we play by the playground rules because it makes sense now. So if I ask you this question, what time is it? You're immediately going to look at your clock. And if you look at your clock based on where you are, you can tell us what time it is based on where you are. I want you to keep this idea of based on where you are in your mind as well. Right now for me, it's 6:42. For you, you could be 11 hours off, an hour off, front or back. It doesn't matter. But have you ever really considered like why we have, like, if you're putting in your time code, like when you're calibrating your clocks on your telephone or your computer, it has like the UTC plus or minus. Have you ever considered where the zero starts? Like it would start at a very logical, make sense point. Like there was a 0 point in time in this world because that just makes sense, right? Well, it's not that deep actually. So this is called the International Dateline. And as you can see, this is from NOAA, government agency. So as you can see, the last paragraph is what I want to highlight your attention to. at the bottom. I need this thing, get off my screen. Okay, it says, despite its name, the international dateline has no legal status. No legal international status, and countries are free to choose the dates they observe. While the dateline generally runs south from pole to pole, it zigzags around political borders such as eastern Russia and Alaska's Alachua Islands. But that still begs the question, why did we choose this international dateline? It doesn't actually go with any, it doesn't go like a 0-point longitudinal thing at all. It's actually starts at the Greenwich Observatory, which was a part of Europe. Europe at the time, when they're choosing where do we want time to start, Europe at the time is like the strongest world power. It is said that the sun never sets on Europe because Europe is so large, right? And so, well, they just get to choose where zero is, and everybody else here, UTC +5, UTC +1, UTC +3, and before then everybody had their own time that they abided by, and this was just a way to unite us. But the social concept is time, but the way that social construct is given to us is actually mandated by another group of people, and we all just play by the playground rules. Like, nobody's going to go ahead and make up their own time right now because, well, we're all under one UTC by a made-up imaginary line that tells us where the 0.0 starts, right? So continuing with this idea of who gives us this information and how is it created to create social constructs, we have social constructs embedded in our daily lives that we may or may not be aware of outside of time. That time thing didn't shake you up a little bit. Hopefully these other things do. So if we look at this map, for those who don't know, this map is a distorted map. We grew up with a distorted map. And this distorted map, what it does is that it actually makes you think of a couple of things. When you think of the Western world, where is the Western world? Well, it's over here, right? It's on the west. Like, the UTC line is already, over here, right? Somewhere. And so, like, this is the west. It's just simple. West, east. Okay, and this is obviously how all the sides of the countries are, because this is the countries and continents are obviously made this way. If I showed you a ball, I should have had a ball somewhere, but I don't. That was hindsight. I have a bowl. I think this is a decent example. I think this is a decent example, just to show you how this is an interesting perspective to take, this east-west perspective, and shows you how who chooses get the mandates. This is a bowl I have in my hand. If I turn this bowl around and ask you to pick a starting point for where I would divide the bowl in half, you literally could pick any starting point you wanted and be right. Like, this is technically like half the world, right? Or whatever, you may see a hemisphere. So when we look at our map, why didn't we do the same thing? Why was it that we easily saw that this is the Western world and this is the Eastern world? And at this point, not only is it East and West, but East and West also separates ideologies. East and West separates development. Like, if you are more developed now you're considered a developed world. Again, these are playground rules that we live by. Literally, we could have put it right here between Russia, China, Mongolia, and just say, and just say, look, this is over here. This is going to be the East, and everything else going to be the West. But we have chosen these things, and it's actually always the people who are in power who gets to choose this divide or these social constructs that we have to abide by. So let me go to this next thing that I think you may find interesting. So to show you how ridiculous the distortion is on our maps, we see that Africa is actually 14 times the size of the United States. Let me flip back to your map right now. The U.S. looks almost bigger than Africa, and Africa is actually swallowing all of these countries and continents whole. I would say continents. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. And so what you see is that you actually have a diminishing the identity of Africa on the map itself, because Africa just exists as an entire continent. I purposely chose a map that actually has the countries of Africa listed in it, so you could actually get that idea that Africa is not just one big country. Like, we're moving on. I'm not going to belabor this point, right? So I wanted you guys to consider social constructs in your own life. What is rude? What is beauty? What is money? What is fun? You guys can drop some love if you want to, so I can see what you consider rude, what you consider beauty, what you consider money, what you consider fun. So, for example, I'll just give you guys something from me personally. I'm Haitian, so we have our own list of rude, and all of the rude have to do with respect. If you're doing something rude, it's because you lack one aspect of this understanding of respect, such as whistling around grown-ups. We would say on, just to show you how rude it is. But like, that's something you don't do. Like, you're not whistling nobody. You don't walk over somebody who's older than you. That's all a part of rude. Growing up in my own home, my mom was very big on decorum. Decorum is actually another social construct that you can really check your own daily life with, because slurping, chewing out loud, shaking hands, putting your feet up on furniture, walking inside the house with shoes or not. How often do you take showers? All of these decorum things are involved with social constructs that are within your own family structure, with this a society in and of itself, and may be impacted by the large society that you partake in. And so, as my identity would be, I'm Haitian American. So the Haitian is an adjective to American. It helps me better identify with my American existence within my Haitian being. And so a lot of people may have their own cultural influences, where it's like, we don't do this around my parts. So again, social constructs are the playground rules that we all decide to abide by. And unfortunately, a lot of our social constructs were given to us and not created by us. So let's get to what was probably some of the topic that you were interested in here. To understand that race is a social construct. I wish I could have laid out thousands of quotes for you to get this idea, but I wanted to bridge it down in the most succinct manner possible that would whet your appetite, and then you can go ahead and do whatever you need to do. And I can give you the sources I've used or whatever it may be. Just let me know. Not greeting adults when you walk into the room. Ooh, that is so rude. That is like, there's no more rudeness you can do besides that. Love my Haitian people. Love my Haitian people. So, about this race thing, these are some influencers on the conversation of race. We have Voltaire. We have, don't know how to say his name. The guy in the middle is something with the B. Voltaire to the left. Bachman or something, something. I can look it up right now just so I don't look really terrible. Blumenbach. And then on the far right, we have Kant. Kant is somebody I'm interested in, and is somebody who's very important to this conversation on the social construction of race. The big issue when it came to humanity and classifying our races was polygenesis versus monogenesis. Polygenesis is that we came from different, what they call stock. So there was a stock for Asians, there was a stock for Black people, which they were saying Indian and Asians was actually a whole conglomerate of what they called yellow people. They have Indians and they have the white stock, right? But Kant pushes back on the polygenesis narrative because he has a faith influence, and his faith influences says, no, we need to believe that we all originated from the same people, from the same person, to go ahead and adhere that to his faith background. And so what happens is there's this discussion that begins, and what they actually develop is classification based on location and physical attributes. But let me just pause for a second before we continue. Remember the line, who set the line for where time starts, and remember the faces I just showed you for who decides what races are and who they are. If this was your governing body, and let's just say that they were making a decision for your Hispanic, your Asian children, but they never lived or speak your language, how well informed do you think they would be about accurately depicting your people group? And so these are not they're like German, right? They're German. And so Kent has monogenesis. He's that dude. He's a forerunner. He's a philosopher. He like has affected so many philosophies and ideologies that we have because he was just that great of a thinker. But unfortunately, this is not one of the ones I'm down with, right? And so here are some of his early quotes. And it might be that there was something in this which perhaps deserved to be considered. But in short, this fellow was very black from head to foot, a clear proof that what he said was stupid. So reminding you that the issue of monogenesis and polygenesis was then being derived to, where they came from, their physical locations. Why I'm giving you this quote is to show you that then there becomes also they begin to equate like their moralities with people. And this is what makes the race classifications very dangerous, because these are your philosophers who's informing the world, who's giving us our playground rules. How do we interact with other people of color if I'm white? Because again, this is coming from white folks who are not people of color. And that, I'm sorry for using people of color because technically we're all people of color, but this understand the conversation, we're moving. All right, all oriented nations that lie toward the east, it's your east, bro. It could have been somebody else's west, but it's your east, are made in the following way: a face that is wide on top and narrow and flat below, almost no protruding nose, very small eyes, very thick eyebrows, black hair, thin and sparse tufts of hair, instead of a beard, and short legs with fat calves. Shaped in this manner are the Eastern Tartars, the Chinese, the Arak, the Siamese, the Japanese, etc. Thank you for sharing, Anna. I appreciate that. Go ahead, check that out. She's sharing Wikipedia, but I know her, y'all. She is actually a researcher and a well-informed individual, so I trust her. And just a real quick throwback. I ain't put this in here, but I should have. But I ain't want to touch on everything. But I'm about to wrap up with you guys because we're about to jump into implicit bias really quick. Voltaire, when listing his racial divides, Kant comes down with four races, dividing up the entire humanity within four races. But Voltaire himself, not only does he take the liberty of dividing up the races, but he begins to put them in a hierarchy. And can you guess what race was at the bottom? Okay, we'll move on. And he puts them just above apes, basically animals. So you have this conversation revolving around all of these things. And so just to show you how strong social constructs are, these guys are having this conversation in like late 1700s to the early 1800s, because they dead by this time. By the time the 1800s roll around, like they're dying within like the first 15 years, so they're all dead. But check this out. This is our U.S. Census and how we took our U.S. Census. It was not until 1960 that people could select their own race. Prior to that point, individual's race was determined by the census takers. Wow. We came so far in, 200 years of trying to figure out where we came from and showing how we're different, that it was still, that in the 1960s, we're still able to tell people, who they are based on physical identity alone. There's the whole census is a whole nother conversation. But I want you guys to see how powerful that social construct that was created. I'm skipping the whole huge chapter on slavery and how this impacted slavery. because I think you guys can see the connections here. And also, just interestingly enough, it wasn't until 2000 that the census actually added a multiracial part to their census. And lastly, one other funny point about the census: America has a huge issue with identifying who is white and how do you identify white. You should really think about this, but there was actually a point in time when you were Mexican, you could be considered white, and actually that was fought for so that they could be included in that people group on the census. So that's very interesting. And my last adieu for this conversation. What's up, Miss D? How are you doing? Hey, drop some love. Drop some love. So let's go to implicit bias real quick. I hope I built this understanding of social constructs for you guys. And I hope I built this understanding of race for you guys. Anytime somebody has more input on your identity than you do, there's already going to be an issue. But anytime somebody, 500 years before me has an entire input on my identity, you know that there's definitely an issue with that, right? So what makes you uncomfortable? When I asked you what time it was, you automatically thought, what time is it for me? Like you personally, what time is it for me? If I'm in Georgia, if I'm in Ethiopia, if I'm in Russia, what time is it for me? And the reason why implicit bias is dangerous, and the reason why I have positioned social constructs in these applicable and a narrative format is so you can see, because you are probably living by social constructs without knowledge. Like, we all know our obvious bias. Like, do you want pineapples on your pizza? What color do you think is a boy or girl color? That might not have been a thing for you, but you do know it, right? What is rude for you? What makes a person look beautiful might not be something that you, all right, but you do know your preference and what kind of mate you want, right? But implicit bias is a little hard. It's much harder, I would say, because you can't really identify an implicit bias because it's probably ingrained in a social construct that you weren't already aware of. It's just a part of your daily interaction with how you communicate and navigate through your family, through your friends, through your school system, through your job. And so the good way to identify your implicit biases is what makes you uncomfortable. And I asked the question, what makes you uncomfortable? What's up, Fred? I see you, homie. Thanks for dropping some love. Thanks for coming through. What makes you uncomfortable when you hang out with your friends? What makes you uncomfortable at your job? Is it the way the person speaks? Is it what time the person shows up for work? What are those things that make you the center of your own judgment, but you can't actually identify what is going on with the other person? So I have a good question for you. I think alerts us to some implicit bias. This is your dream home. You get to build it from scratch. You get to consider every single detail of the home, from the sidewalk to the door of your bathroom to the color of your doorknobs, right? And I'm just going to give you about 4 seconds, 10 seconds to think about every detail and why is it important to you. All right. So I know you probably had doors. I know you probably had space. You probably had a kitchen because that's just what may be normal. Some people ain't here for the kitchen. I'm not gonna make no. I'm not gonna make no assumptions, right? I'm trying to check myself. But depending on who you are and your physical capabilities, did you make sure that the door and the steps into your house and maybe the access to your fifth or fourth floor, because you can do whatever you want, is accessible to people with physical limitations? Maybe you did, maybe you did not. Implicit bias are considerations that you don't make. Implicit bias are assumptions that you do make. You do make the assumption that it's accessible for you. You do make the assumption that this is perfect for you. But we don't make the assumption of how does this affect other people? How do I perceive other people? Implicit bias is the ability to be to other yourself. People aren't the other, you are the other. What perceptions, what decisions, what things do you do to help uncover what is uncomfortable to you, and what decentralizes you from looking at the person in front of you as the other? So here's the thing: we're in a hot topic. We're in a hot topic on so many issues. It's an intersectionality because you have race, you have economy, you have health. Like you have the world imploding on itself with uncomfortable conversations and uncomfortable perspectives. And why I say what makes you uncomfortable, a really good way to develop and awaken yourself to your implicit bias is to check your circle group. Is your circle group identical to you? What's up, Sabrina? 10 seconds is nowhere near enough. I'm not looking at these comments. I apologize. I got y'all. Is your circle group identical to you in physical appearance? Do they match your color? Do they match your political alliances? Do they match your faith setup? Do they match your ideologies as far as how humanity should be treated? And what that does for you is to diversify your portfolio. So we're not like the people who helped set up this social concept of race, which actually didn't have any involvement with the people that they were talking about. We're able to awaken ourselves to where we're blinded by. So, right. So the first thing is, hey, Daph, you made me aware of the implicit bias thing and social constructs. Cool. That's what's up. So the next step is to do something about it. If I was standing in front of you and I said, yo, bro, you got a bug on your shoulder, like a voracious human-eating bug, you wouldn't be like, all right, bro, got the bug. That's what's up. I'm aware of the bug. No. You would literally do whatever you could to get rid of this human-eating bug on you. Ooh, Anna, I'm seeing this now. My bad. She says, I did, but only because I had family in the past need the accessibility. That's beautiful. That's exactly what we're talking about now. Like, she had to experience where she can other herself to accommodate and incorporate somebody else. So that's why it's important to have those experiences, because you can easily think about, oh, saying this would make my friend feel like, or I'm now aware that just because you look this way doesn't mean you and also, just so you guys know, there are actually, before this wasn't so readily available, but like now, like in the past couple of years, it's like booming. There's implicit bias tests you can take. Some of them are lengthy, some of them are not, but they can actually be very informative, and it's something that you can do in your privacy. And once you begin to challenge yourself and become aware of this ferocious human-eating bug on your shoulder, I truly encourage you to do something about it. I am going to, that's what we're doing now. I'm going to encourage you to do them. Literally just go to Google and type in implicit bias test. There are so many, and I do have resources that I use to get this information. So I know a lot of information may not be like, wow, how'd you find it? Because honestly, you could just Google it. It's right there, right? Nothing's that deep that I actually posted here. It's really just a check and a see for ourselves, so we can better navigate our society, our surroundings, our families, our friends, our coworkers in these climactic times when it seems like we want to yell, talk at, get a point across rather than communicate. and other ourselves, so we can take on the burdens and understandings of our brothers. I'm going to take a moment because we are at the end here and just see if anybody had any questions or comments I can throw up on this thing. I tried to keep it within 30 minutes and I did that, so that's what's up. And this was really, again, just the whetting of your appetite. So you can go back and check some of the things I said and check some of the things on your own. It wasn't that deep, but it was definitely an introduction. I'm just going to... Legitimate question. What's the next step after identifying your implicit bias? Some people say go make. Some people say go reach out to an individual and like go befriend them. And on the other side of that, like people don't want to just be befriended because like, hey, come test subject me to learn what you don't know. But I honestly would say check yourself out the door at that point. And checking yourself at the door at that point can literally be going to be like, you know, I'm pretty opinionated about this. Let me go inform myself some more and make sure when I inform myself, I'm not using sources that I already agree with my opinion, and possibly even sources that come from that people group that is a thing. And that would be really good. And if you do have people who are in your circle, like they may be an acquaintance but not your actual friend, it's okay to be transparent with them because none of us actually represent the entire scope of humanity or the people group that we identify with. But we can better inform you of what we represent that may not rub well with you and how it's probably just okay because it's all a part of humanity. Oh, and I'm just going to drop this last thing. I'm about to go off if I don't see no more comments. And another reason why I really want to show you guys the kind of direction of how the people who are empowered made a lot of have impacted us deeply with the social constructs that they have laid out for us is that race is not a legitimate identifying factor of any people group, and that's why there's the double entendre of why race doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter because it's a social construct, just like the color of a clothing doesn't identify whether somebody actually is a boy or a girl. But it does matter because that's how we have been taught to interact with each other. Historically, you can see in literature what the colors white and black represent. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but that's just an example, right? And so it does matter. What really does matter, and this is something that we now are trying to really engender at this point, is that what really matters is like our ethnic diversity. It's why I can appear to be black, but be born in Costa Rica, you know, or be born in Japan and speak fluent Japanese and not identify with any monolithic black culture in America. And so we have to be more sensitive to what a person represents before we literally look at them physically to judge them. Like we're taught at a very young age, don't judge a book by its cover, but we don't practice that very well because we have been taught to do otherwise. Race is important because we have been treated by race, which is why we have numbers, research, and data to support that. But race is not important because it should not dictate how we interact with each other as human beings. All right, good people. It's been lovely. It's been a blessing. The Circle Collective is always amazing. I kid you not. We are actually probably going to be wrapping up soon. Look out for announcements on the Circle page. I really appreciate you guys for participating today. I hope you learned something. If you need a source or if you need more information for a topic or one of these things that I just dropped really quick, hit me up. My name is Daphnenaud, Daphnenaud. I'm easily findable because I don't think there's any other Daphnauds in the world. And check out Circle Church page. We do Bible studies right at this point, pretty much every Saturday at 11:15. We do post the Zoom links on the Circle Church page, and we are looking at actually how we can do ministry in this time where we have been told to socially distance ourselves. So if you're interested or if you want to inquire about what we are doing in the Granger area, feel free to message the page or message me. It's been a blessing having you guys' attention, and I hope that we can all be more human and more godly to each other. Bye, guys. Oh, I'm just seeing this. Can you share any resource for implicit bias in the comments? Um, yeah, like, yeah, I'll drop one real quick. If I close out the broadcast, they'll still be there, but I'm gonna drop one real quick. Oh, here's a good one. This is a good one. Check out this video. It's by the New York Times, and they did a series of videos of implicit bias, and it's like a breakdown. And I think it's really good because they kind of did what I did actually today, which is let you know what it is, let you know how it impacts you, and then let you know what you can do about that. So I'm gonna drop it in the thing right here. So check that out. Any other things, definitely hit me up and I'll let you guys know. Blessings, good people.